In the grand halls of the Varelli Dominion, silence meant power. The ceiling stretched high like the spires of a forgotten god, carved with glowing alien symbols. Queen Zirathi stood tall before her council, her sharp eyes scanning the faces of her advisors. Her voice was calm but carried the weight of 1,000 decisions. "The treaty must be signed," she said, her silver skin shimmering under the light. "The war has taken too much from us. If we continue, both Earth and the Dominion will fall." The Varelli were proud, ancient, and advanced. Their empire spanned dozens of star systems. But Earth had surprised them. The humans were newer to the stars but clever and relentless. They fought not with superior weapons but with strange tactics, fierce courage, and endless creativity. The war had dragged on far longer than the Varelli expected. Now both sides were tired. To end the war, Earth had offered a peace agreement. The condition was strange even for the Varelli, a symbolic marriage between the Queen of the Dominion and a human representative. Most of the council hated the idea, but Queen Zirathi saw opportunity. "If we do this," said one elder, "we invite weakness into the palace." "No," said the queen. "We invite control. A human under our roof means Earth will follow our lead." Far away on Earth's side, the human council had chosen their representative carefully. Commander Elias Rourke was not the strongest nor the most famous, but he was respected, a man who had fought in space and on the ground, who had led teams and faced loss with quiet strength. He was calm, clever, and had a strange ability to see patterns others missed. When he was told he would marry the alien queen to stop a war, he simply said, "If it keeps people alive, I'll do it." The day of the ceremony was strange for both worlds. On the Varelli capital planet, banners flew in both languages. Millions watched across galaxies as Elias walked through the palace, dressed in black and silver. He did not wear armor or medals. He looked like a man attending a funeral, not a wedding. Queen Zirathi met him in the central chamber. She was taller than him, her eyes glowing with the soft blue light of her species. She wore no crown, only a robe of woven light. She studied him as if reading a weapon manual. "You are smaller than I expected," she said quietly, so only he could hear. "You're taller than I expected," Elias replied, without fear. The ceremony was short, filled with old traditions neither truly understood. But when it ended, the war was over. Earth and the Dominion were now connected, through politics, through promises, and through this strange new marriage. That night, in the royal quarters, Elias found himself alone at first. The walls hummed softly, and alien stars blinked outside the wide glass window. He touched a small device on the table. It lit up with Varelli writing. He had been learning it for weeks. Queen Zirathi entered silently. She didn't look at him right away. Instead, she walked to the window, hands behind her back. "You know this marriage is political," she said. "I assumed as much," Elias answered, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Still, I'd like it to be civil. Maybe even friendly one day." She turned to him slowly. "You're not what I expected. Most humans I met during the war were loud, emotional, eager to prove themselves." Elias gave a small smile. "I've never been very loud. That may serve you well," she said, and walked out, leaving him in silence again. The next day, Elias joined the queen at the council hall. He was given a ceremonial seat at the edge of the circle, far from the center where real power sat. He watched, listened, and said nothing for now. One of the Varelli nobles, Lord Vexir, spoke loudly against the treaty. "This human presence is an insult. He should not be here during council." Queen Zirathi did not reply immediately. She looked toward Elias, curious. Elias stood up slowly. "I understand your anger," he said in a calm voice. "You've lost people in the war. So have we, but peace is not weakness, and presence is not power, unless power is given." The council grew quiet. Lord Vexir sneered but did not answer. After the meeting, Zirathi stopped Elias in the hall. "You spoke carefully. Why?" "Because some weapons work better when you don't swing them," he said. That night, a whisper moved through the palace. The human wasn't as soft as he looked. He didn't shout or fight, but he saw things. He listened, and he waited. Queen Zirathi, lying in her chamber, stared at the ceiling and thought, "Perhaps this man is more dangerous than any soldier I've met." But instead of fear, she felt something else, something rare for a queen who trusted no one. She felt curiosity. Elias Rourke had been living in the Varelli palace for just 1 week, and already eyes followed him wherever he went. Some eyes were filled with curiosity, others with fear, a few with quiet anger. The halls were cold and beautiful, made of black stone and soft lights that responded to touch and movement. Everything felt alive, but not in a warm way. It was a palace of control, not comfort. He didn't speak much during council meetings, but he paid attention to everything. Who interrupted who, which nobles laughed together, which ones stayed quiet when others spoke. Every small reaction was like a piece of a puzzle, and Elias was good with puzzles. Queen Zirathi remained distant. She sat tall at the center of the chamber, her face calm, her voice measured. She treated Elias like a distant object, not ignored but not included either. He didn't mind. He knew he had to earn his place here, not be given it. One morning, during a shared meal, Zirathi finally spoke directly to him beyond simple greetings. "You sit like a spy," she said, lifting a thin cup filled with dark liquid. Elias looked up from his plate. "I prefer the term observer," she raised one eyebrow. "Observers don't make plans." "But you do." "I only plan when I see chaos ahead," he replied with a light smile. She did not smile back, but she didn't turn away either. "And what chaos do you see now?" Elias paused. "Your council is not united. Not all of them want peace. That is no surprise." "It should be," Elias said quietly. "Peace should feel safe. But here it feels like a test." Zirathi looked at him for a long time, then said nothing more. But something in her eyes shifted. She had started to listen. That same evening, while walking through one of the smaller gardens in the palace, Elias noticed two palace workers whispering behind a tall plant wall. One of them held a silver tray, but the other held a small device Elias had never seen before. The moment they saw him, they went silent and bowed quickly. "Good evening," Elias said politely. "Good evening, honored consort," one replied. They left in a hurry. Elias watched them go, his mind working quickly. Something about the device felt wrong. He didn't say anything at the time, but he memorized the face of the worker who had held it. That night, in his private study, Elias began going over the palace staff lists. The Varelli system was hard to navigate, but he had been practicing the language. After an hour, he found what he was looking for. The worker didn't belong to the Queen's personal staff. He was assigned to the Eastern Hall, nowhere near the garden. Elias quietly requested a meeting with one of the lower-ranked security officers. He shared his concern but made no direct accusations. "Just a strange thing I noticed," he said. The officer thanked him, clearly unsure whether to take him seriously. But the next day, the same worker was caught trying to place a recording device in a council chamber. He wasn't armed. There was no fight. But the event shook the inner palace. Queen Zirathi summoned Elias to her private chamber. This time she was not calm. "You saw him once and suspected him. How?" Elias stood straight, but his voice was gentle. He didn't belong where he was. And he held something he wasn't supposed to have. "You reported him without proof." "I reported a feeling," Elias said. "Your guards found the proof." She studied him for a long moment. "You think like a shadow. That can be dangerous." "It can also be useful," he said. A small smile touched the edge of her lips, the first he had seen. From that moment, things changed. Elias was given access to more areas of the palace. Not all, but enough to feel the shift. Some nobles nodded to him now. A few still looked down on him, but they no longer whispered as freely. He was no longer just a human husband. He was something else, something they hadn't expected. One afternoon, while walking beside Zirathi in the Hall of Records, she asked him a question that surprised him. "Do you miss Earth?" He paused, thinking about green trees, old cities, street food, and the smell of rain. "Yes," he said, "but I think I miss being understood more." She nodded slowly, looking ahead. "You may never be fully understood here." "I didn't come here to be understood," he said. "I came here to understand." They walked in silence after that, but it was not an empty silence. It was the beginning of something new. Not yet trust, but perhaps the first step toward it. By the end of the week, the palace had started to change in small ways. People spoke more carefully. Doors didn't stay open as long. Plans that were once whispered now remained unspoken. And Queen Zirathi, once sure of her control, now found herself thinking more and more about the quiet human who asked questions instead of giving orders, and who saw danger in silence. For the first time in years, she felt unsure of what would happen next. But she also felt something else, as excitement. The Varelli people believed in strength. To them, power was not just about words or position, it was about proving yourself, especially in public. And for someone to truly belong in the royal palace, they had to pass one of the oldest tests of the Dominion, the challenge of bloodsteel. This challenge was not about war. It was a ritual, a tradition. It did not always end in injury, but it always ended with a truth revealed, who you were when pressure pushed down on you. Many who entered the challenge walked out with honor. Others walked out with shame. The council had begun to whisper that Elias, the human consort, should face the test, not because he needed to prove strength, but because his growing influence was making many nervous. He had already uncovered a spy, earned the queen's attention, and gained the trust of some guards and minor nobles. That to them was too much power for someone not born in the Dominion. Queen Zirathi heard the whispers, and after some thought, she sent for Elias. He entered her private chamber, calm as always. She stood beside a curved window, her back to him. "They want you to face the challenge of bloodsteel," she said. "I know," Elias replied. "You could refuse." "I could," he agreed, then added, "But I won't." She turned toward him surprised. "You understand it's not a game. They want to test you in front of the Dominion. I understand. They want to see what the human is made of. They want to see you fail." Elias gave a small smile. "Then I'll have to disappoint them." Word spread quickly through the palace. The human had accepted the challenge. The grand arena was prepared. It was not a place for entertainment, it was a place of tradition. There would be no cheering, only watching. The day of the challenge arrived. Elias stepped into the arena wearing simple armor borrowed from the palace guards. It didn't fit perfectly. It wasn't made for him, but he didn't complain. Across from him stood his opponent, a Varelli warrior named Sarath, tall, broad, and strong. Sarath had trained for this since childhood. His armor was his own. His weapon, a curved staff with glowing edges, was part of his history. There was no greeting, no speech. Only the sound of a bell, soft and low. The challenge had begun. Elias didn't charge forward. He didn't raise his fists or shout. He simply watched. He moved carefully, stepping back when Sarath tested him with quick moves. The crowd watched in silence. The human didn't fight like a Varelli. He didn't try to match strength with strength. Instead, he used timing. He let Sarath come close, then moved aside. He dropped low when others would have jumped. He used the arena floor, the light, even his own mistakes as part of his plan. At one point, Sarath swung too wide. Elias caught the edge of the staff and let it spin him, using the motion to roll behind his opponent. He didn't strike. He didn't need to. The crowd saw it. Sarath had made an opening. Elias had seen it and used it. That was enough. After several minutes, the bell rang again. The challenge was over. Neither had fallen. Neither had been hurt. But the result was clear. Elias had survived. More than that, he had adapted. Queen Zirathi watched from above. She had not moved during the test, but her fingers had tightened behind her back. When the final bell rang, her hands relaxed. Later, in the council chamber, a few nobles tried to twist the result. "He did not win," one said. "But he did not lose," replied another. "It was clever," said a third. "Too clever, perhaps," Queen Zirathi finally spoke. "He fought in our arena. He followed our rules. He used what he had. That is the Varelli way." The room went silent. In her private chamber that night, she called Elias once more. "You were not supposed to win respect," she said. "I didn't know that was a rule," he replied with a slight grin. "You make them nervous?" She added. "I make them think," he corrected. She looked at him with something close to admiration. "I have known many warriors," she said. "They fight with their bodies. But you fight with time, with silence, with eyes," Elias nodded. "Sometimes the best weapon is patience." She walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "I expected a human to be useful for peace," she said. "I didn't expect one to become necessary." Elias stood beside her, quiet for a moment. "Peace is never given," he said. "It has to be built, even if you're the only one with a hammer." And in that quiet, beneath the sky full of alien stars, the queen began to see something even more powerful than strength, the slow, steady, dangerous power of human will. Life in the Varelli palace continued, but something had clearly changed. Where once Elias Rourke had walked as an outsider, now he moved like a quiet force. The staff bowed with more respect. The guards no longer watched his every step. Even the nobles, once cold and suspicious, now chose their words more carefully around him. But power always came with attention, and not all attention was welcome. Elias had started to notice strange patterns. Notes delivered late. Scheduled meetings quietly changed. Certain data missing from his reading table. At first he thought it was just the palace's usual complications. But then, one evening as he walked through the Hall of Echoes, a chamber that reflected sound in strange ways, he heard something he wasn't meant to. We let the human in, and now the queen listens to him. The voice was low, hidden behind one of the carved columns. He weakens her, makes her see Earth's ways. If we don't act soon, we may lose the throne to soft peace. Elias didn't move. He waited in silence. The voices faded, their owners unaware he had heard anything at all. But the words stayed with him. That night, Queen Zirathi joined Elias in the observation tower. It had become their habit once every few days to meet there and speak about politics, culture, or nothing at all. There was something comforting in their growing rhythm. "Your people are strange," she said, looking out at the stars. "Strange how?" Elias asked. "You're fragile, soft, you live short lives, and yet your kind never stops moving forward." He nodded. "We move because we know time is short." She looked at him for a moment. "Do you trust me, Elias?" He was quiet before answering. "I trust your goals. I trust that you want peace. I trust that you think about more than just appearances. But not me personally. I want to. I'm learning how." She didn't look hurt. Instead, she seemed thoughtful. He considered telling her about what he'd overheard, but held back. Not yet. He needed more. The next few days, Elias began working more closely with the Queen's knowledge keepers, scholars who recorded history, policy, and culture. He asked questions no one had asked before. Why certain records were missing. Why some council members' names appeared more in war discussions than peace. He wasn't accusing anyone. He was just curious, and curiosity was a dangerous thing. One of the junior knowledge keepers, a soft-spoken Virelli named Thalen, began to help him. Thalen enjoyed human questions and often joked that Elias asked more than a room full of scholars. One evening, while reviewing old council records, Thalen whispered, "This document has been edited. Someone changed the list of votes after the last war summit." Elias leaned closer. "How do you know?" "The symbols are not from the same time, and the language style shifts slightly. It's very well hidden." Elias didn't smile. He simply said, "Can you copy this file for me quietly?" Thalen nodded. Elias now had something more than whispers. He had proof, small but real. Someone had changed records to hide who had pushed hardest for war to continue. Perhaps those same voices were now afraid that peace would break their hold on power. He went to Zirathi's chamber that night without an appointment. The guards let him in. She stood near her long desk, her robe draped over one shoulder. "You come without warning," she said. "I've found something," Elias replied. She listened carefully as he explained. He showed her the copied record and pointed out the changed symbols. She said nothing for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was colder than he expected. "This kind of deception is dangerous. If it is true, it means someone in the council has betrayed the throne. Or they're trying to protect their version of the Dominion," Elias said softly. Zirathi looked at him. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I've seen peace die before," Elias said. "And it always starts with silence." "I won't be silent." She walked slowly to the wide window and looked out. "I chose to marry a human to end a war," she said. "I didn't expect that human to understand my own people better than I do." "I don't understand them better," Elias said, stepping beside her. "I just pay attention," she looked at him. "And now?" "Now we decide whether to stay quiet. Or act." The stars outside blinked slowly. Somewhere out there, Earth still watched. The Dominion still whispered. And peace, fragile and beautiful, stood on a narrow edge. Zirathi finally spoke. "We act, but carefully. No public moves, not yet. We watch who reacts. Who grows nervous." Elias nodded. "Agreed. Let's turn the silence against them." For the first time, they were not just a queen and her political husband. They were partners in purpose. And deep within the shadows of the palace, those who feared change began to feel something new. Fear of the quiet human, and the queen who had started to believe in him. The palace was calm on the outside, but underneath a quiet storm was forming. Elias Rourke and Queen Zirathe had begun watching closely. They shared few words in public, but behind closed doors their partnership grew stronger each day. They trusted each other more now, not completely but enough to begin something serious. Elias continued meeting with Thalen, the young knowledge keeper. Together they found more signs of hidden changes in official records, small edits, quiet deletions, false vote counts. Nothing alone was enough to accuse anyone. But together they pointed in a clear direction. Someone powerful wanted the war to continue, or at least wanted peace to fail. The Queen said nothing publicly. Instead, she started making small moves. She changed her advisors for minor matters. She replaced 2 guards near the council hall. These actions seemed normal, even boring to most people, but those who were watching closely noticed. One evening, while Elias walked through the inner garden, a tall Virelli noble approached him. Her name was Vereen, a council member known for her sharp tongue and careful steps. "You walk alone. Consort Elias," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I find the garden peaceful," Elias replied politely. "Peaceful is not always safe." He looked at her calmly. "Neither is truth." She tilted her head, curious. "You're not like the others." "Others?" "The humans we've met before, traders, soldiers. They spoke quickly, acted quickly. But you wait. You ask questions. You don't show your hand." "I only show my hand when I know who's sitting at the table." Vereen's smile widened slightly. "Be careful, human. The palace is not a place for slow games." "I've already noticed," Elias said. She left without another word. Later that night, Elias told Zirathe about the conversation. She listened without interrupting. "Vereen is one of the old guard," she said. "Her family helped shape the Dominion's early laws. She believes in strength, not change. She's nervous," Elias said. "She wanted me to feel watched." "Then your silence is working." In the weeks that followed, Zirathe invited more neutral members of the council for private talks. She discussed trade, education, even art. But underneath every meeting was a question: do you want the peace to last? Some answered with clear support. Others answered with silence or vague words. Elias began writing quiet reports, never official, never signed. They were simply titled Observations. He left them for the Queen each morning. Small details. Noticing who avoided who smiled too quickly, who always changed the subject when Earth was mentioned. Zirathe read every word. Then, something unexpected happened. An invitation came from a nearby system, the planet Eris, a Virelli territory known for its mixed population of aliens and Virelli citizens. They wanted to host a cultural exchange event. Art, food, shared stories. A celebration of the peace agreement between Earth and the Dominion. The council was split. Some said it was a waste of time. Others said it was an opportunity. But Zirathe agreed to go, and she insisted that Elias attend with her. The journey to Eris was smooth. The atmosphere there was lighter, the air warmer, the buildings soft in color and shape. People gathered in large halls to hear music, watch plays, and sample food from both worlds. Elias noticed something unusual. People here liked the peace, not just tolerated it. Human traders worked beside Virelli cooks. Children played without noticing the difference in skin, eyes, or voices. Zirathe saw it too. "This is what the Dominion could become," she said quietly. "But someone back home doesn't want this future," Elias replied. That evening, during a gathering in the Sky Hall, a message came. Quiet, hidden in a harmless-looking report. Elias opened it on his private device. Thalen had sent it. "We found the source of the record edits, a senior council assistant, connected to Vereen's network. More soon." Elias read it twice, then turned to the Queen. She saw the change in his expression. "News?" she asked. "Yes," he replied. "A thread has been pulled, and it's starting to unravel." She didn't smile, but her eyes lit up. "Then we return soon." "But not too quickly," Elias said. "Let them think we're still in the dark." Agreed. As the celebration on Eris continued, Zirathe and Elias sat side by side, not as a political couple, but as quiet builders of something bigger than both of them. They had no army, no weapons, only shared trust, observation, and the steady work of finding truth. And now, for the first time, the shadow hiding in the Dominion had a name. Soon, it would have a face, and when that happened, the Queen and her unexpected human husband would be ready, not to destroy, but to reveal, expose and rebuild. Together, the return from Eris was quiet. No fanfare, no speeches, just the Queen and her human consort stepping down from the ship and walking through the grand palace gates. But the silence carried weight. Word had already spread that the trip to Eris was a success. People had heard stories of laughter, shared meals, and children from different worlds playing together. Even some of the older nobles were starting to wonder, was peace actually working? Behind the scenes, Elias and Queen Sirathi moved carefully. The report from Thalen had confirmed what they suspected. Someone close to Counselor Vereen had been changing records. It wasn't just one file, but many. Years of quiet manipulation, all designed to make certain council members look stronger, smarter, or more loyal to the war effort than they really were. Elias read through the files in their private chamber each night. He didn't just look for edits. He looked for patterns, timing, names, decisions that didn't make sense unless someone was trying to protect themselves or shape public memory. One night, while reviewing the last group of documents, Elias looked up at the Queen and said, "I think we have enough." She met his eyes. "To accuse them publicly?" "No, not yet. But enough to make them move. Enough to make them nervous." Sirathi nodded slowly. "And when they move, they make mistakes. They always do." The next morning, the Queen made a surprising announcement. A full council gathering, open to select press and observers from neutral planets. It would be a discussion about the future of the Dominion, its values, its memory, and the place of Earth within its future. The palace buzzed with whispers. Why such a meeting now? Why so public? Why invite outsiders to watch? Counselor Vereen, of course, spoke against it. "This is unnecessary," she told the Queen. "Such discussions should remain private, internal." But Sirathi only replied, "If the Dominion is to grow, it must learn to be seen. Truth does not fear open eyes." Vereen did not answer. When the day came, the council hall was filled with careful eyes and hidden tension. Each member wore traditional robes. Elias sat beside Sirathi, silent, observing. He was not a counselor, but his presence was no longer questioned. Sirathi opened the meeting with calm strength. "We speak today not as rivals or rulers, but as caretakers of a shared future. We will not debate the past. We will ask what we want to become." Many nodded. Some did not, she continued. "But before we plan the future, we must understand the story we've told ourselves, and whether that story is true." Then Elias stood. Every eye turned toward him. "I was once just an outsider, a guest, a symbol of peace," he said. "But I've learned more here than I ever expected. I've read your records. I've listened to your stories. And I've noticed something. The past is not always told the way it happened." A wave of discomfort passed through the room. Elias didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse anyone by name. Instead, he placed a small glowing disc on the council table. With a soft hum, it projected a few altered records in the air, 2 versions side by side. The original and the edited, no words, just evidence. Sirathi spoke next. "These records were changed by someone in this room or someone close to them. We are not here to punish, not yet. We are here to say this. The truth will come to light. The peace we are building cannot stand on false stones." There was silence. Then Counselor Vereen stood. Her voice was cold but controlled. "And who brought these records?" "The human consort." Elias didn't flinch. "The records came from your own archives. And yet," she said slowly, "they appear now just as Earth's voice grows stronger." Sirathi replied before Elias could. "Do not twist this. This is not about Earth, this is about the Dominion's soul." A few counselors nodded. Quietly. Carefully. The meeting ended without decisions, but the message was clear. Truth was now on the table. That night, someone tried to delete the evidence from the palace archives. But Thalen had already protected everything. Copies were stored in hidden servers off-world. The attempt was noticed, logged, tracked, and now, Elias and Sirathi had something even more valuable than proof. They had fear, not their own, the fear of those who had lied. Because those who lie in secret often panic in the light, in their private chamber that night. Elias poured tea for the queen. He smiled slightly. They didn't expect us to move so soon. They didn't expect us to move together, she said. He looked out the window at the stars. What happens now? Scifi placed her hand gently over his. Now, she said, we give them a chance to choose the right side, before the wrong one crumbles under them. The quiet war for truth had begun, and the human she wed, patient, calm, and always watching, was no longer just a symbol of peace. He was its architect. The days after the council meeting passed slowly, but the effects were spreading fast. Rumors whispered through the palace halls. Nobles who once ignored Elias now paused to greet him. Advisors who had doubted Queen Zirathi's judgment began speaking more softly. Something had shifted, not through war, not through power, but through quiet truth. Scifi and Elias met with Thalen in a hidden chamber beneath the palace. The young knowledge keeper looked nervous but excited. We've secured the records, Thalen said. They're now stored in 3 separate locations. Even if someone tries to delete them again, we'll still have them. Good, Elias replied. We don't need to threaten anyone. We just need the truth ready when it's time. Scifi looked thoughtful. The council is unsettled, but some still believe they can outweight us, that we will grow tired. Elias smiled slightly. Then let's tire them with progress. And that's what they did. Instead of launching investigations or making accusations, Scifi announced new reforms, small but meaningful. A public archive of council decisions, a new committee of record keepers including members from both Earth and the Dominion, education programs that would teach shared history, real history, to the next generation. Some counselors quietly pushed back. Others supported her, seeing which way the future was turning. Farine, once loud and proud, now sat quietly in meetings. Her assistant, the one who had edited the records, had suddenly taken leave from the palace. No explanation, no return. They had not needed to punish anyone. The weight of being exposed had done the work. As weeks turned to months, Earth and the Dominion grew closer. Trade improved. Shared research stations began construction in neutral space. Artists from both worlds performed side by side in cultural events across the systems. People began to believe in the peace, not because it was forced, but because it was working. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the Virelli capital, Elias and Scifi stood on the palace balcony, side by side. It's strange, Elias said. When I first arrived, I felt like a guest in a grand play, like I didn't belong on the stage. You weren't a guest, Scifi said softly. You were the unexpected part of the story. He turned to her. Do you regret marrying me? She looked up at the stars for a moment before answering. At first I thought I was marrying for strategy. For peace. I didn't know I was marrying someone who would see the cracks in our walls before I did. He smiled. And now, she said, I see what we are building. Together. There was no need for more words. Later that week, Scifi announced a new council seat, one to be held by a representative from Earth. It was a historic decision, one that no one would have imagined a year ago. And though some protested quietly, they knew the direction was set. Elias did not take the seat. Instead, he nominated someone else, a human diplomat trained in Virelli customs, someone younger, someone ready for the long work ahead. I was never meant to be a ruler, Elias said. I was just the bridge. But not everyone saw him that way. In the markets, people spoke of him as the quiet flame, the human who had brought change not with weapons, but with calm eyes and careful words. Children played games pretending to be the queen and her human partner, solving puzzles and bringing peace. And in distant parts of the Dominion, once closed-off planets began asking for cultural missions from Earth. Curiosity was growing. Fear was shrinking. One morning, as Scifi and Elias walked through the royal gardens, Thalen approached them with a new report. A request, he said, handing Elias a tablet. From the outer colonies. They want to start human Virelli schools, shared classes, shared teachers. Elias looked at the screen, then up at Scifi. She nodded. Then we give them what they ask for. The queen had changed, the human had changed, and together, they had changed the path of 2 civilizations. As they walked on, side by side, the sunlight passed through the trees, casting soft golden light on the path ahead. There would still be challenges. There would still be doubts. But the foundations were stronger now. not built with force, not built with fear, but with trust. And no one, not even the alien queen, had expected the quiet strength of the human she wed.